So you've heard today from doctors. You've heard today from, come on up, Gary and Nadia. I'll get you to come sit, have a seat up here if you may. You've heard from nurses, but now comes the real deal. So now we're going to have a little chance to have a chat with Gary and Nadia Lambert, who I'm going to get them to share their story with us so that they can know, so that we can know a little bit of Gary's experience and Nadia in doing so. Are both of your mics on?
Yes. I don't know.
Sweet.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Well, first of all, let me just say thank you for joining us today. I know it can be a little bit intimidating. On the other hand, having spent some time with the two of you, I was moved almost to tears listening to your story and how you partner together. But maybe we'll just start simple, and maybe you can share a little bit of your story, Gary, and tell us a bit about your myeloma and your treatments.
Sure. Sure. So, I don't know, I can talk a lot. You want me to start from the beginning?
Well, maybe brief at the beginning and a bit more on what's happened recently.
So, it's 9 years now I've been living with myeloma. Got diagnosed in my 30th birthday.
A few days before you turned
My day before my 30th birthday in 2014. So I was 38 years old. It was a rough year, 2014, just because I was newly diagnosed. I wasn't smoldering or anything like that. Went in, got diagnosed, stage 3, 80% involvement. That year, I had completed like 2 half marathons, a 100-mile bike ride. I was very active. I was a power lifter. I work in law enforcement. I was very active. By the time I got diagnosed, couldn't walk, had a cane. I was, just in a lot of pain. Started out with the standard treatment in those days, RVD. And prepare for stem cell. So we went through the induction period, went through the workup for the stem cell, developed heart failure. The V in RVD, the Velcade, caused cardiomyopathy. So my ejection fraction dropped down to like 30%. My heart functioned. Switched that out. Second line of treatment. Got everything stable enough to begin stem cell. Didn't achieve remission, but I did achieve a good partial response. 2 years later, reoccurrence. And that is where the real journey for me began. The psychological aspect of it, the anxiety, the depression, you diving into finding how you can truly live with this has begun. Because at first you think the stem cell transplant and this is all behind you, you can go back to work. I had 2 kids at the time I got diagnosed. I think they were 5 and 6 at the time.
Yeah.
So, you have your career, you have your family. You was real eager to get back to life. But when the reoccurrence occurred, it was a hit to your gut to let you know that this isn't going away and that this is going to be something that you need to be more involved in. Started looking at options. At that time, they put me on the first version of Darzalex, the slow drip, the long infusion. Graduated to Fast Pro, which was a shorter infusion. Graduated to the injection. That's how long I was on Darzalex, for like the better part of 5 years. It kept my M spike relatively low enough for me to function. I was still working, still had myeloma symptoms, but I was still able to work, still able to take care of my kids. Resumed some activity, gained a lot of weight, because the DEX.
Yeah.
That was the worst thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I still continued to do things that doctors didn't tell me to do because I'm living my life. So if the doctor had a problem with you doing jiu-jitsu, or Muay Thai, or keep up with your martial arts training, or powerlifting. I don't recommend you deadlift 500 pounds when you have fractured back, but I did. But that was my life, and I lived my life on my terms.
I don't think I could say no to you if you're doing that anyway. I'm just saying. I'm not going to say no to you doing jujitsu, but
But things, decreased.
yeah.
And by the time I reached 2019 now, 2 years after being on Darzalex, I reached a tipping point in my life. I had to decide on my career. I was in law enforcement. Couldn't do that anymore. So the city and state of Philadelphia and Pennsylvania, that was kind of a weird job. I was part state, part city. Retired me. They were just like, you're done. You can't do this. So I was forced to retire. So I'm a disability from that. I looked at CAR T. So I have a background in physics and math. I'm a science engineer person originally. Went into psychology with my job for 10 years, but decided to investigate CAR T. So I signed up with, I took on a second doctor, Dr. Vogel at Penn State.
UPenn.
At UPenn, you're right.
UPenn.
Dr. Vogel. So at that time, UPenn was running their own clinical trials on CAR T. I have a background in math, so the numbers made sense. You're looking through data, you're just looking at values and making determinations based on, test results and tracking the trends and all of that. They were doing experiments on bites, as we spoke about earlier, where the CAR T and the myeloma cells are joined together. But I never really got involved. My cardiomyopathy came and go over the years. So sometimes my ejection fraction would be really good, other times it would be really low. So I never quite qualified for CAR T in 2019. But since I got forced to retire, we decided to relocate here to Tampa, primarily because of Moffitt. That had a lot to do with it. I don't recommend you always move for the sole purpose of where you can get the best cancer treatment, but that's what we did. I didn't want to stay in Philadelphia anymore. It's just too much going on there. And so 2019, we vacationed at my wife's house, home in the Bahamas. And then while we were in South Florida, we drove over here. The social worker at my hospital up in Philadelphia organized an appointment for us to visit Moffitt. The following year, we bought a house down here in Riverview, sight unseen. We sold and gave away everything, packed everything else in a trailer, moved down here, set up an appointment. By then, I'd already researched my doctor, Dr. Blue. I had looked at his resume, I looked at his papers. I'd researched him pretty thoroughly before setting up an appointment with him. And he took me on as a patient. So that was that. Still on Darzalex. By now, I'm on the injection. This is 2020. Darzalex and dexamethasone. Just the two. 2022, I'm noticing in 2021 my numbers are climbing. I always check my numbers, and I'm always going through and checking trends and all of that. I do this since I'm a cancer patient advocate for the past 5 years. I've spoken on panels for pharmaceutical companies and things like that. So, I'm kind of familiar with certain things. My wife is obviously the best advocate ever. So I always.
We're going to come to her in just a second.
Yeah. So I always communicate with her whenever I notice something's out of place. So 2021, my M spike is gradually increasing. I'm noticing my, was it my IgG?
Yeah.
Yeah. It was, my light chain ratios are changing, all that good stuff.
And you're feeling crappy.
And you're feeling crappy, but you can't always tell with that, because some days you have good days, some days you have bad days. Some weeks are just whatever, is that heartburn or is that something else? You're not sure. But by the end of 2021, we realized that something was up. And that's when Dr. Blue was just like, yeah, we're going to have to talk about this. but we'll talk about it next year after the vacation. So we came back from New Orleans after the holidays in 2021, January 2022. He pulls out the menu that we saw up there, the various forms of treatment and the drugs. We go through the different lines of treatments I've been on already. So we exit out what we already tried and know it doesn't work and all that. You stop counting after like 4 or 5 lines of treatment, at least I did. So we decided on chemo and some steroid and something else. So we go to the good old-fashioned Cytoxin and Pomalyst, along with the Dex again. And the idea was to get on that on a frequent basis. I want to say monthly, weekly, then monthly,
Monthly, then weekly.
and then, right, and then we get put on the wait list for CAR T. So I met with the CAR T team. Dr. Hansen is the best, short little lady. She's real cute,
Everybody's short to you.
but she's the sweetest. Yeah, but she's the sweetest person ever. So her team did the whole workup for me throughout the year of 2022. By the summer of 2022 was when I got the call that I have a slot.
That August.
That August.
Yeah.
My first question was, which one did I get? Because there's 2 commercial grade of CAR T, Abecma and Carvicti. She said Abecma. I was like, yes. So I put it on my Instagram page, got Abecma. My college roommate, our college roommate,
Oh,
was just like, we got you, bro. Because he runs one of the labs for Bristol Myers Squibb in New Jersey. So he was a bio major, I was a physics, math major. So nerds. So he's like, we got you, bro. We got good stuff up here. Don't worry about it. I'll make sure everything's cool. So he runs the lab in New Jersey. I won't say Princeton, New Jersey. And I was like, yes. So I went through the knockdown process for the chemo. That went okay. After the collection, there was an issue with the collection, the manufacturing. Manufacturing was still kind of squirrely back then, like a year ago. So at first, there was contamination with my collection. I had to redo it. Then they came back and was like, nah, you good. You're all right. It was a little out of spec, but we think it's good. It's still considered a trial now that it's out of spec. But the dosage was right. I think dosage was just like 450,000 or something like that.
400 million.
So 450,000, yeah, cells.
I'm going to be answering her the questions now. Yeah.
Yeah. So we got the dosage right. The cells were a little hyperactive, were a little bit more jumpy.
Shocking.
But they said, it's still good to go. So I was like, yes, because I didn't want to go through the apheresis process all over again. The needles is just, I had to get a catheter. Yeah, they couldn't do the peripheral method.
So tell us, just because time's running quick, but tell us about that period of time after the CAR T.
So it was uneventful, and that's the end of that. I mean,
That's a good thing, right?
I mean,
it's a good
literally,
thing, right?
like, they gave me literally nothing. Like, they gave me the process. I was expecting it to be like my original stem cell, but
Smoother.
it was nothing. Like, I didn't get sick. I was already tired because, I don't know about y'all, but Pomalyst is like the devil. And it just knocks your energy out. You have like 8 hours of like walk-in time. And then after that, you're just done. And Cytoxin doesn't help. But that was it. Like, I didn't get sick. I didn't have any unusual symptoms. I didn't have any GI issues, which I was expecting from based on the first thing. I didn't have any neurotoxicity, nothing.
And of course, that's not everyone's experience, right? We want to be careful with that. But on the other hand, I think sometimes people hear about these new therapies and they just expect that some terrible, horrible thing is going to happen. And I think, Dr. Shane and I were talking about it even at the break. I mean, we're getting better at managing these things.
Yeah.
Not just managing the side effects when they happen, but actually trying to prevent them. And I say this all the time, there's no drug we use in myeloma now the way it first got introduced. Every drug goes through an evolution to make it easier on the patient and even make it better. But Nadia, I want to ask you, I mean, you've been such a marvelous support through this. Even just seeing your hand on his back touches my soul here. To know how you're supporting him through all of this. I know so much of it is being that kind of support that we can't even put in words. But I want you to share a little bit of your side of this. And I know you have a particular interest in health literacy. I mean, I know that's really important to you. Maybe you can talk to us a bit about that as well.
Sure. First of all, this is wild. The caregiver normally doesn't get to sit here and talk about anything. We're usually in the audience, go baby, go, you sound great. So being up here is a little strange, a little odd.
We're glad to have you.
Thank you. In the last 9 years, I think I've learned a lot. I consider myself fairly educated, but I was not prepared for the MIBs, the MABs, the MIDs that they started throwing around. And I had to be there. I mean, every cancer patient is different, but he's tired, he's achy, he's grumpy, and you're expecting him to take in all of this information and bring it home and explain to the rest of us? No. So I'm coming with my pen and my pad. There might be a few doctors and nurses in Philly who have my face on a dartboard because I ask every question. If I didn't get it in the session, I'm going to email you later. Here's my top 100 questions because I need to know. And for his sake, my sake, and then at the time with a 5 and 6 year old, I have to explain in my way what's going on, and I had to get my health literacy together. And, as a Black woman and also a first-gen American, there's a lot of things with the healthcare system that maybe I fear or mistrust and, that I had to get rid of. And I feel it even now, 9 years on, I still get WhatsApp messages saying, well, has he tried drinking water and lemon? I heard if you have that first thing in the morning, that'll scare the cancer cells away. Or, have you tried, steeping pine needles or something like that? And, I'm all for a lot of alternative things. That's cool, but Moffitt exists for a reason. Dr. Blue is here for a reason, and you have to sort of trust the process. And as you ask the questions, you also have to accept some of the answers. It's not always what you want to hear, but it's the truth. And, year one, I think I probably dehydrated from crying because I didn't understand myeloma. And I made the mistake of doing research on my own without asking a lot of questions. And 9 years ago, the prognosis wasn't great, especially for stage 3. So I'm thinking, okay, let me get my widow gear together. I'm going to be a single mom. I wasn't prepared for this. What's going to be happening? And I couldn't envision 9 years later still sitting here with him. That it still boggles my mind, and I have a lot of gratitude for our original team in Philadelphia and for our team in Tampa that took the time to educate us and answered questions, big, small, and stupid, and helped us get through it. And, in those first few years, we were a part of a family support group for the children. And they met other kids like them. They had pizza, did crafts, and the social workers had, soft discussions about their feelings. And at first they're like, feelings, who cares? Pizza. But, they still slowly opened up. I mean, my daughter's a little suspicious. I think she knew she was being conned, but she still went along with it. And, they spoke about their feelings a little bit. And, it's been invaluable. And it's so important, especially in the Black community, to understand what's going on with your disease. Okay, you have cancer, and it's happened. We've asked, other patients, what kind of cancer do you have? XYZ. Okay, what are you being treated with? I'm not quite sure. It's something, I'm not sure what it's called. Okay, well, how do you take it? What's your line of treatment? And they don't know. It's great to trust your doctor, but you also need to know. You need to know all of your medications. Yeah, he might be taking 16 pills. He knows what all 16 are. He knows when he's supposed to take them, what he's supposed to take them with. And if there's a point where he doesn't know, then, you know what, Dr. Blue, call me. We'll make sure that he's on track. Because when there's a knowledge gap, they have to say knowledge is power. In the cancer community, knowledge is the difference between life or death. The things at the beginning that I didn't know, could fill an ocean. And we're at the point now where we're like the unofficial cancer advocates within the family. People are like, does this look like a lump? What should I do? It's like, okay, we didn't actually go to medical school. Moffitt didn't give us degrees here. You still need to see someone, but sometimes it's good to be that first line and say, hey, ask your doctor XYZ, oh, you're feeling this pain and that pain, or they think it might be, thyroid cancer. Okay, well, maybe you should make an appointment at Moffitt or make an appointment at UPenn or Jefferson and see someone. Don't just let it sit and wait, because that fear and that mistrust, you sit and wait on it, you go from MGUS to stage 3 and you don't even know. Gary was diagnosed, by the time he was diagnosed, he had fractures in his spine. He's actually maybe an inch shorter than he used to be because his spine just collapsed. Had we, not to blame the doctors in Philly or anything because they were all great, but, another 6 months of warning might have changed that for him. Some of the pain and the aches aren't going to go away, but we didn't know anything about myeloma by then. We didn't know to ask questions and say, well, his symptoms might look like, check that out. Nope, nothing. So I think it's really important to...
It was 9 months from when I first exhibited symptoms to when I was officially diagnosed.
Yeah.
So it sort of almost fits exactly with the numbers
Yeah.
we talked about this morning.
9 months
He got
off.
sent to physical therapy
Saw-
for his back.
I saw a medical sports doctor, physical therapy, x-rays with no results, x-rays with no results. On the third set of x-rays, they saw a spot. They did more scans. That's when they really started to suspect something. By then, I was walking and I was referred to a orthopedic oncologist pending results for the myeloma test.
Yeah.
Fortunately, I didn't need rods put in my long bones, in my legs. The surgeon said it wasn't necessary. My bones were still holding. But
they were holy.
But my sacrum was completely almost detached. I had lesions from C1 by that time in the space of several weeks or months, a few months. I had lesions from C1 all the way to the lumbar region. My sacrum was detached. I had a hole in my hip. And most of that progression occurred in the last 6 months because initial x-rays didn't show anything.
Yeah. So I can listen to you all day long. First of all, Nadia, you belong on the stage. Am I right or am I right? When she says that she hasn't been on the stage, I think you belong up here. But I think we wanted to share a real life story, of course, and I think I don't need to add any commentary here, right? I mean, you've seen some of the great side of being able to have an incredible partner. You got it good, man. I say it about myself. I married up, and you've got an amazing partner. But also the challenge of this delayed diagnosis of all these things happening, the positive of being able to develop a relationship with someone like Dr. Blue,
Yeah.
and to have a center like Moffitt is really remarkable.